That's what I want to do. You know, we want to bring a title back to DC, back to DC, back to DC, back to DC.
Bryce Harper saying that he wanted to bring a championship back to DC is like calling your current boyfriend or girlfriend by your ex-boyfriend or girlfriend's name. It just doesn't end well. Now, the reason why I brought up Bryce Harper accidentally saying DC instead of Philly is because most of the time when you bring up your ex's name in a conversation, it's because you've been thinking about them. So if you put that into perspective, Bryce Harper at his intro press conference for the Philadelphia Phillies was thinking about the Nationals. So in my opinion, I truly felt like Bryce Harper did not want to leave the Nationals. But if you ask any Washington fan, yeah, they hate Bryce Harper. But what I'm going to try and do today for all of you baseball fans and especially Washington Nationals fans who are watching this video right now, I am going to try and shed some light as to why you actually owe Bryce Harper an apology. Because let's face it, a lot of you don't know that the Washington Nationals did offer him a contract at 10 years, $300 million. But did you also know that they wanted to defer that contract until he was 60 and 65 years old? So yeah, Bryce Harper would not be getting his entire contract till he was a grandpa, okay? There's that. But of course, as baseball never fails to disappoint us, Bryce Harper leaves the Nationals and they instantly become a better team. And I will admit, Bryce Harper leaving had a lot to do with that, but was it all Harper's fault? I'm going to explain why it wasn't. Real quick, I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, SeatGeek. If you're going to any playoff baseball games, NFL games, or even NBA games, use code Fuzzy to save $20 off on SeatGeek. Now, again, this video is not meant to put hate on Washington, D.C. I actually love their stadium, and I'm a huge fan of their star players. I love Anthony Rendon. I'm a big believer in Juan Soto, Max Scherzer, Steven Strasburg. Some of these guys are my favorite players, but I have to admit, we've seen this happen before with Josh Hamilton and the Texas Rangers. The Rangers fans absolutely loved and adored Josh Hamilton, but as soon as another team gave him a better contract, it was a division rival of the Texas Rangers, the LA Angels. Now, we all know how that story ends. Josh Hamilton was pretty bad for the Angels, and he actually got traded back to the Rangers, which was funny because as soon as he comes back to the Rangers, their fans seem to forget that he left, and then they embraced him again. So I'd have to assume that the same thing would happen to Bryce Harper, but unfortunately, he signed a 13-year contract and actually had a pretty decent first year in Philly. I don't think he's going back to DC anytime soon, but I want you guys to understand that I like the Nationals, and I understand why the Nationals fans would be upset. But there's more to it. Back in 2010, Bryce Harper was selected with the #1 overall pick out of high school, or technically high school. He did get his GED and went on to play at the College of Southern Nevada, but he was still just 17 years old at the time. He was given the title of baseball's next chosen one. He spent 2 years in the minors, and eventually in 2012, when he was called up, he put on a show en route to winning the Rookie of the Year. But if you can remember anything about those 2012 playoffs, you know that Bryce Harper was not great in that year's NLDS, but he was not given a chance to redeem himself as the Nats bullpen blew a Game 5 lead. And I want you all to pay attention to how many times I say Game 5 in this video, because up until 2019, Game 5, those words, you did not want to hear them as a Nationals fan.
And a 9-7 game, 4 runs.
Over the next 7 seasons, Bryce Harper delivered some of the highest highs and the lowest lows of any baseball player that I've ever seen, including back in 2017 when his MVP season was cut short because he was running out, busting his butt. He was always known for that. Nationals fans loved this guy, and in 2017, his knee buckled after slipping on first base. He rushed back from injury in time to make the playoffs. I know he wasn't great, but still, all of DC could see that this guy loved playing for the Nationals, and he wanted to do nothing but win. Fast forward to 2019, they've completely forgotten that, and they're now blaming Bryce Harper for the 2012 to 2018 failures of the Washington Nationals. But I'm going to focus on one year, 2015, that should change all of your minds. Back in 2015, Bryce Harper put up stats that we have not seen since Barry Bonds. He won the MVP at just 22 years old. And guess what else happened in 2015? The Washington Nationals, who had the 5th highest payroll in all of baseball, missed the playoffs. Anthony Rendon, a star in 2019, had a 707 OPS. Ryan Zimmerman, a 773 OPS. Ian Desmond, 674. Dan Uggla, yes, Dan Uggla was on the squad. He had a 183 batting average, followed up by Michael Taylor, who had a 640 OPS. Trey Turner, who was just beginning to play Major League Baseball, he hit 225. And then if we look at the pitchers, Jordan Zimmermann had a 3.66 ERA, which was the highest since 2010 for him. Same with Gio Gonzalez, who had a 3.79 ERA. That was his highest since 2009. Again, we're going from 2015 back to 2009. Also, Steven Strasburg had a career low 127.1 innings pitched. So yeah, it was Bryce Harper's fault that they continue to miss the playoffs and choke in the playoffs. Yeah. Totally. So since all of DC is sticking their nose out and rubbing it in Bryce Harper's face because they're now in the World Series the year after he left, let's remind ourselves that Anthony Rendon, a 2019 MVP frontrunner who was a monster with 34 home runs, he led the league with 126 RBIs. In back-to-back playoff appearances, he was 6 for 41, which is a 147 batting average. In 2016, we saw the Washington Nationals bullpen absolutely implode and give up a lead to the Dodgers in Game 5. Again, that's the second time that we've talked about Game 5, but that is not going to be the last time because the Nationals, again, they were afraid of Game 5 up until this year. Bryce Harper had zero control of what the manager decided to do in Game 5 of the 2017 NLDS, in which they brought in a gassed Max Scherzer to try and get the Cubs out, but guess what? He allowed 5 of 7 Cubs to reach as he allowed them to come back and steal a victory. In Game 5, they choked. Now again, I love Anthony Rendon and I'm a huge fan of Max Scherzer, but I bring those up because Nationals fans, they are blaming the entire era, almost a decade of failures, on one man. Baseball is a team sport and it's also a random sport. I cannot believe that the year that Bryce Harper leaves, all of his ex-teammates decide to play really well and not choke in the playoffs. Max Scherzer has been lights out. Steven Strasburg is finally healthy. Anibal Sanchez almost threw a no-hitter. Dave Roberts, the manager of the LA Dodgers, finally decides to give the Nationals a early Christmas gift and reverse the Game 5 curse when he leaves in Clayton Kershaw to face up against Anthony Rendon and Juan Soto. We all know what happened. Clayton Kershaw gave up back-to-back home runs, and then Joe Kelly came in and gave up a grand slam to Howie Kendrick, who has a career 775 OPS against right-handed pitchers. So that just backs up my point that baseball is a team sport and it's also random. You cannot predict what's going to happen. No one expected Howie Kendrick to be Steve Pearce in the playoffs because if you don't remember, Steve Pearce became a different player for the Red Sox last year. And also, Juan Soto, he was 3 for 17 in the series against the Cardinals, yet his team still swept the Cardinals. That just goes to show you that if your role players actually step up and play like they're supposed to and your pitching does not choke, good things can happen. The Nationals, they were supposed to be in the World Series 4 or 5 years in a row. They're stacked. And the cherry on top for all of the Bryce Harper hate coming from DC fans is the fact that the Nationals clinched a day before Bryce Harper's birthday. So everyone has been trolling him on the internet saying, "Happy birthday, Bryce." You know what you get? Nothing. You get to watch us play while you're on your couch, even though the Nationals fans gave him a standing O in his final game at Nationals Park. He even cried after the game talking about how much he loved Washington, D.C. But behind the scenes, we fail to understand that the Nationals general management almost seemingly did not want this guy to return because they gave him a contract where $100 million was deferred. They did not want this guy back. And the reason why is because they finally understood that baseball is a team sport. If you expect Bryce Harper to be David Ortiz or Barry Bonds or Babe Ruth in the playoffs, you are never going to make it. So what did they do? They took Bryce Harper's contract money and they gave it to Patrick Corbin. They were also able to sign guys like Anibal Sanchez, Kurt Suzuki, Brian Dozier, Matt Adams. All of these guys contributed throughout the season, but I will be honest, if you're a Nationals fan and you're saying that you would rather have Adam Eaton over Bryce Harper, who had 35 home runs, 114 RBIs, and 882 OPS in his first season in Philly, all while leading the National League in outfield assist, if you're sitting here telling me that you would rather have Adam Eaton, who is currently hitting 194 in the playoffs, you can save that conversation for someone else because I'm not buying it. Just go back to 2002 when Barry Bonds went off in the playoffs, yet still lost to the Angels in the World Series. Go to the 2019 Cubs. Their offense was stacked, but when you have a really bad bullpen and starting pitchers that cannot get the job done, I don't care who is on your team, Bryce Harper, Babe Ruth, Barry Bonds, you can say goodbye to your World Series chances. Now, yes, I understand that Bryce Harper went to a division rival, which makes this video so much more complicated, but I'm just trying to put it into perspective perspective for the casual baseball fans that are not biased, that are looking at the tweets from the DC fans and thinking, wow, Bryce Harper is a bad guy. I've met him in person. He is completely different. Yes, he's competitive on the field, but Steven Strasburg is finally at 100%. He does not have an innings limit. Max Scherzer is having his best postseason to date. Juan Soto is finally in the playoffs. Anthony Rendon is doing pretty well. The role players are stepping up. None of that had to do with Bryce Harper. Factor in Bryce Harper's contract offer from the Nationals, where $100 million of the $300 million was deferred money. He became their scapegoat, and to quote Harvey Dent, you either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And that's exactly what happened in the hearts of Washington, D.C. fans. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope that you did enjoy and learn something. Go easy on Bryce Harper. And if you are a DC fan, I'm going to go ahead and roll some of the best highlights from Bryce Harper's career, because I don't know about you guys, but I wish Harper was still on this team.
With one out, the pitch. Swing and a long drive. Deep to right. Going. Goodbye. He has done it. He has changed the game of the night with one swing of his bat.
Bryce Harper is about to be walked for the 12th time in a 4-game series. 6 walks today to Harper, and 13 in the series.
He just said, this is awesome. He can remember this game the rest of his life. He will.
There it is.
Center field, and Bryce Harper has thrown his bat in the air and won the 2018 T-Mobile Home Run Derby, and he loves it.